You're welcome to The Pulse on the JoyNews channel. My name is Daniel Daze. These are the headlines. Chaos at Circle. Traders at Tiptoe Lane near Kwame Nkrumah interchange in Accra today resisted a security task force brought in by their Ghanaian counterparts to shut them down. We bring you more scenes of the clash and speak to feuding parties. Also in Accra, we take you to the island community of Fana in the Gas South municipality, where childbirth is life-threatening because women have to travel for an hour in a canoe to access health care. And on your election headquarters, Opposition National Democratic Congress NDC demands audit of voter register. They say the Electoral Commission is underreporting numbers in their strongholds. We also have the very latest from the just-ended NPP news conference, where national organizer Sami Oku says President Akufo-Addo is the best candidate to lead the country in 2021. Welcome. Glad you could join us. Let's start this afternoon from Fana, an island community in the Gas South municipality of the Greater Accra region, trapped between the sea and a lagoon. It's about an hour's canoe journey from the nearest community, Cliffe, which is itself a shoreline settlement. Many women at Fana are currently pregnant and face an uncertain future. We'll hear from a development NGO, Send Ghana, which is pushing to get the major political parties in the upcoming presidential and parliamentary election to include the construction of at least clinics in deprived communities such as Fana. Fires first, though, Henry Kwesi Bedu's report from that community.
35-year-old Kwame recounting how her wife in 2018 delivered their first child in a canoe and route a chief's compound miles away from the island community.
I went fishing when my wife was in labor. She delivered on her way to the hospital in a canoe. The hospital is very far from where we live. I was afraid something might happen to my wife because the health center was a distance away.
His wife is lucky to have survived, but the fisherman is worried because his wife is now 7 months pregnant, expecting a second child soon.
I am now afraid that something may happen to my wife the next time she labors.
The only way to access the community is by canoe. With no electricity, water, and other basic amenities, pregnant women and other members of the community in dire need of health care will have to risk their lives by sitting in paddling canoes without life jackets for close to an hour to reach the nearest health facility.
There is no clinic here. There is no anything that can help an individual or people here so that they will be able to give birth. That is why normally when they're in a labor, people normally convey them in a boat to Chokome or the other side, that is Pamblos, before they can do deliver.
Rosemary Dasi is also a resident here. Her water broke in the dead of the night last year. With no canoes operating in the night and no traditional birth attendants, she had to wait for 4 hours to get a canoe, enduring severe pains and putting her life and the baby on the edge.
It started around 1 a.m. I felt funny, and my husband called his mother and grandmother. They confirmed my time was due. The canoe came around 5 a.m.
Rosemary delivered, but she does not want to relive the same experience.
I was in pain and I couldn't sit in the canoe. After an hour, we got to the banks of the river and I was told to quicken my steps. I got to the hospital and delivered safely, but it was a horrifying experience.
And now I'm saying jogging. Timinanti kakra, minanti intentem. Minanti dana miko kakra akola no chimi na magina me so mikono sa asaja me na minanti.
Pregnant women aren't the only victims here. Other sick persons face similar challenges too. They rely on first aid until they get access to canoes, which are not readily available. Rosemary now has 2 children. She tells me how she takes care of them anytime they're unwell before seeking medical attention.
I take my children through steam inhalation or give them some herbs anytime they are unwell until I get a canoe.
Health personnel visit the community occasionally to provide life-saving health services like immunizing their babies. Today is one of such days, and we tag along community health nurses at the Botiano Clinic as they embark on a journey to Fana. We finally reach the community trapped between the sea and the lagoon. Onansis Kankam is a visiting nurse.
If there is money, let's say every 2 weeks, we're able to come. But if there is not money, once in a month, then we try our best and then come. Yes, yesterday, a similar one just occurred. But by God's grace, we were able to say. What happened? Can you narrate what happened to me? You see, there are certain area that when we get, the sea has just joined the lake. So it makes it difficult to pass through the waves. So we were stuck. But let me say, with the techniques of the captain, that is the one driving the boat, and by God's grace, we're able to say today. It's not easy. It's not easy. If you don't, if you are not a man, let me say that if you are not a man, you cannot come. You rather go back, or you feel reluctant to come to this particular area to work.
An asthmatic patient died here earlier this year. Sister of the deceased, Gifty Akoli, spoke to us.
He had complications and died in a canoe before he could reach a health facility.
Half a dozen newly-born babies have died in the past 6 years because they could not get to a healthcare facility early enough. Son of the chief of the community, Besman George Edbe, tells us more.
Actually, bear to my knowledge and based on what I've come to, clinically about 6 people who have delivered on the way. Bear to my knowledge, that's what I've heard and what I've seen. But clinically, 6 people who have delivered on the way.
And how many have lost their babies?
Yeah, actually, that's 6 people that I'm talking about. 4 people lost their baby on the way. 4 people lost their baby, and 2 have lost their life. 2 people lost their life and 2 people lost their baby.
Until the government comes to the aid of the community in dire need of healthcare centers like that of Fana, many lives will continue to be at risk. Henry Kwesi Bedu for JoyNews.
Joining us via Zoom is Country Director for Send Ghana, George Bimpe, for more on this. Good afternoon, George. Please unmute your microphone. Now let's start with your reaction to this revelation about a community located in the capital and in this kind of situation after nearly 3 decades of uninterrupted democratic governance. What do you make of it?
Well, you know, the stark reality is that oftentimes when we talk about poverty, and this is a multidimensional poverty, not necessarily income level, we often tend to look outside Accra. But within Accra, the averages always hide the reality. And so oftentimes such critical segment of our population are not getting the needed attention in terms of services that they need. And that is a big shame on us that we have not seen a true correlation between democracy and development that is driven on the principles of equity, and that certainly should have gone to this kind of, this unfortunate segment of our population. And that is a big indictment on all of us who think that we have come of age as a democratic state.
Now, in Ghana, we spend $147 per person in the healthcare sector. Some would say that that is a huge investment. I remember sometime in 2005, the GDP percentage was 6.2%. Where are we going wrong? Is it the allocation of resources, for instance?
Well, it's both. You see, it's so easy to say that we spent X amount of money per head. But the thing is, are we really bothered to look at how much of that per capita expenditure actually goes into improving the well-being or the health status of the citizens for whom we are quick to strike averages? If you look at the expenditure carefully, the health expenditure carefully, you realize that capital expenditure has been on the lower side for some time now. In much the same way, goods and services have also been on a downward trend. Majority, the greater part of the budget goes into the major item, which is emolument. And if you look at it that way, it is only the health professionals who largely consume, especially GOG funding to the health sector. And so it may be too simplistic for us to strike the averages and use the per capita expenditure in the sector to say that we are doing well. We are not doing well in terms of our inability to meet the Abuja Declaration on Health Financing, which basically requires us to devote a minimum of 15% of budgetary resources. The furthest that we have gone, I think about 4 years ago, must have been around 9% thereabout. So we have not, over 15 years, after 15 years or so of signing the Abuja Declaration, we have not shown so much commitment in terms of prioritizing health expenditure and basically using equity consideration in the allocation of the resources. And if you look at it carefully, you realize that the poor who are in impoverished communities are shortchanged in terms of allocation of resources. They do not have the facilities. They do not even have the human resource. The nurses and the doctors oftentimes refuse postings to such communities. There are no complementary services that can even entice them to take up positions there. So holistically, we have not approached health financing from a comprehensive programming point of view.
Right. Now, you speak of comprehensive programming. This is not just a healthcare issue, is it? Because you see the clear cases of inequality, where because you are in a rural community, you are mainly poor people, very little commercial activity, all the basic amenities they need are not there.
Yes, that's the point I was making about a lack of equity consideration in how we allocate budgetary resources. Certainly, you would take into into account the circumstances of the impoverished, so that when you are allocating resources, you make conscious effort to ensure that the imbalance between the rural communities and the urban communities are somehow addressed by pushing more resources. So, for example, you want to address their needs in terms of road infrastructure, so that even if you may not be able to provide them the health facility, there are motorable roads on which they will ply their abobo yars, whatever name you call it, to the nearest health facility. But here is the case that many even do not have electricity, they do not have education facilities, and you see, the higher your education level, the higher the propensity for you to even avoid a certain form of illnesses. And if you do not address social services in a comprehensive context, we may still continue to be having this problem so long as we continue to use hard work and then haphazard, piecemeal approach to addressing the issue of healthcare or social service in rural areas.
Now, I want us to be able to capture this challenge and how wide it is. In 2012-2013, the World Bank has shown that about 50% of Ghanaians live in rural communities, but they account for 78% of the poor persons in Ghana. That means there's a higher chance of you being poor if you live in what is classified as a rural community. We know we are not paying enough attention to them, but where can we start?
Well, we need to understand the extent of the problem. The Ghana Statistical Service about 3 weeks ago released a report on multidimensional poverty indicators in Ghana. And basically it says that about 45% of our population are poor, if you look at it from a multidimensional perspective. What it simply means is that 45% of our people do not have access to water, access to electricity, access to healthcare, and so on and so forth. And if you look at it carefully, those in the rural areas currently account for about 43% of the population. And this deprivation is very endemic in rural communities. So let us understand the reality of it and then request for a comprehensive social protection programming to address their needs. And in doing that, we don't need to forget, we need to certainly consider issues of social infrastructure as also part of the social protection intervention that we provide. Oftentimes, we look at only the social services that we provide. But I think that because of the complementary nature that you need to build linkages in the program that we give to them so that we address holistically the extent of poverty, inequality, and deprivation from a more comprehensive approach, that really requires a lot of political commitment rather than sloganeering that oftentimes clouds our judgment in terms of determination of what intervention we ought to implement to address or to support these vulnerable groups so that we as a country can benefit. Because once we address their problem, they are put in a position to make greater contribution to the development of the country. And so it seems that we are condemning or we are denying ourselves contribution of about 45% of our people. And that doesn't augur well for the development journey that we are embarking on as a country.
And that number really stands out for me, 45%. That translates to about 13.5 million Ghanaians who are poor.
Multidimensionally, yeah.
Yes. Well, if you can shed some light on that term multidimensionally for any of my viewers who may not understand, what does that mean?
Well, oftentimes you hear that poverty level has reduced. So at the moment, if you take income poverty measure, we can talk about 23% of Ghanaians being poor. But that is only looking at the issue of income. Beyond income, there is the issue of access to social services. So in this community, they are poor in terms of a lack of access to health facilities or health care. That means that it is not only income poverty that they are suffering from, but poverty of health care. There are some communities that lack basic education facilities. So you may put it as poverty of education facilities. Even security, livelihood, nutrition, all those are factored in. There are some people who cannot get the 3 square meals a day. The nutritional content of the meal they eat doesn't meet the minimum requirement as per convention establishes. And so these are the different variables that you take into account to measuring the multidimensional aspect of poverty. And so then cumulatively, 45% do not have all of these, in addition to those that I haven't even mentioned. That is what it simply means, that they are simply poor. In P, you say, that is how you may put it, because it's not only about income, clothing, that is shelter, even where they sleep. They do not have standard accommodation. All those people are classified as multidimensionally poor.
Thank you very much. That actually brings us a lot of clarity in this conversation that we are having, so that we can understand well what's meant by multidimensional poverty. We want to bring the conversation to an end. You were talking about how we must bring it to fore, especially since we are in the election year, and we must see to it that political parties are able to make it a part of their agenda. Unfortunately, we find that these persons are most vulnerable to vote buying, so that persons who are experiencing any kind of poverty will see the quick payout on election day and then just go and vote. So what can we in the middle do to ensure that this becomes a serious issue that is dealt with by politicians?
Well, I think that the so-called middle, those of us in the middle, we need to understand that if we fail to act, the liability on us will continue to increase and we will be stressed out. So it is incumbent on us to see it as our problem rather than their problem. That's the first thing. The second point I want to make is that as Send Ghana, we have worked with our partners to influence the political thinking of the thinking of the key political actors, i.e. the political parties. And we have gone throughout the country to take perspective of citizens in terms of their expectation of the political parties, and we have engaged them. We are keenly observing and watching the kind of proposals they will make in their manifestos, so that we will see how those address the challenges that are confronting us regarding inequality and poverty. And then it will be incumbent upon us, and this is why I invite the media to continue to continuously engage the communities to understand why and to know which of the political parties is making the right proposals. In terms of the monetary inducement, my brother, we can't do so much about it, but I would say if they take it, if the politicians take it, let them take it. At least it will alleviate them, but let us advise them that once you take it, know that whoever is bringing you that money is buying your destiny. So teach them a lesson. Let us continue that education to teach the politicians a lesson that we cannot take the people for granted, only to resurface after 4 years to just buy them a pot of porridge, just to disappear. So if they take the money there, I would say let them take it. After all, it is their own money that these politicians may have siphoned in whichever way that they have used. We can't do so much about it. But let us educate them, for them to interrogate the politicians. Beyond the money you are giving me, what is your party going to do to address my circumstances so that I'll not forever be dependent on you?
Mr. Bimpe, thank you very much for joining us. He is a country director for Send Ghana. Let's go to Parliament now, because Member of Parliament's Poverty Reduction Committee, Edward Bauer, is calling on the police to arrest Chief Executive Officer of the Zongo Development Fund and investigate him over alleged procurement breaches to the tune of 5 million cedis. He's also urging the president to fire Arafat Suleimana Abdullahi. He says the misuse of the fund is a disappointment to residents in Zongo communities.
First and foremost, let's look at the rationale behind even the Zongo Development Fund. As per government's own policy, it was meant to intervene in the lives of people living in Zongos and the neighborhoods, by the inner cities and what have you. And this was supposed to help reduce poverty. So if you have a situation where 5 million Ghana cedis has been misappropriated, and all laws associated with the expenditure of such monies have been broken, and that there have been an admission of the CEO of the fund that yes, he is aware that the procurement laws that govern the expenditure of such monies were breached, and the person is still in office. The person has not been handed over to the police for further investigation. Then this is a slap in the face of people who live in Zongo, people who are supposed to be direct beneficiaries of these monies, people for whom their names have been used to expend this money. It's really a disappointment to the government.
So your expectation is that who exactly acts on this? The president, the Zongo Development Minister? What exactly do you want to see?
First and foremost, the Zongo Development Fund falls under the Minister for Zongo. Is it Zongo? Is it Inner Cities and Zongo Development? I think that for now, the minister should have even made a statement about what the position of government is. His Excellency the President has always indicated that he needs evidence to be able to show, to be able to act on some, corrupt allegations. We have a situation where the man, per the report we get from Corruption Watch, that they have him on tape admitting that he had breached those procurement laws. There's clear evidence that some of the items that were procured were way above market prices. With all this, even if the minister in charge of that sector isn't acting, the president should be acting now, because per our own architecture, the minister works in the person of the president. And so if the minister is not acting, the president should have by now acted.
And you don't want to see prosecution as well beyond the minister being removed?
Yeah, obviously. For me, I've always...
beyond the CEO being removed?
You see, for me, I've always believed that the laws must apply. But I also believe that we don't prosecute, we don't just sentence people in public. I expect that now, at least the minimum is that the person should have been out of office. The minimum is that the person should have been handed over to the state security to investigate, and timelines given for the findings. And based on the findings, the Attorney General can take a decision to prosecute.
Some argument has been made that some of the items were for procurement of COVID-19 related relief items. So then all of that had to happen in a rush. The hand sanitizers, the PPEs, and so some make the assumption said breaches was expected.
You see, the fact that things were supposed to be in a rush to do some of these things, that is why you usually, even in the procurement law, there are provisions that are made for such emergency situations. And on such emergency situations, when you write to the PPE was not living outside Ghana. The PPA would have definitely known very clearly that under the circumstances they needed to have met and then approve some of these things. For you to go and purchase items, for example, you realize that under the COVID in here, it said that they spent about 200,000. That was above his threshold. The threshold was supposed to be 100,000, and you were going 100% over your threshold. It was only fair that within these particular circumstances, if you had written to the PPA asking for permission to even sole source that, you would have done, because under those conditions, it would have fallen under those conditions. But you don't go expend those monies and then you then write letters to ratify the activity. That is the first point. It is also very clear that even within those same circumstances, the market values of those items were higher than what was sold in the market. So beyond just the fact that the whole idea of it was an emergency situation, there was a deliberate attempt to shortchange the state. And you see, I will tell you one thing. People have, and we have cause to believe that people have used COVID as an excuse to milk this state. Indeed, if you were to go to the district assemblies, there were if you look, all the district assemblies were giving first 166,000 Ghana cedis. The second batch was 50,000 Ghana cedis to buy some of these PPEs like sanitizers, what have you, and other things. Most of the district assemblies cannot account for these monies, and all under the name of COVID. You had private entities now having to intervene and get these things for people. And so to use COVID as an excuse to breach the laws in this way, and it's 5 million Ghana cedis. Do you know how much that can do? Let's look at the Zongo areas. Some of the basic amenities that they need, they don't have it. And you are supposed to pretend over the expenditure of such an amount of money, and you go on to you are not able to account for 5 million, how you used it and how you were within the laws. That is so sad.
Edward Bauer there will speak to Joseph Opoku Gakpo in just a moment, but a bit of background before we do that. A Corruption Watch investigation uncovered that the Zongo Development Fund has engaged in alleged procurement malpractices in the purchase of goods, services and works worth 5 million Ghana cedis. Now, the management of the fund allegedly superintended procurement breaches such as inflation of contract figures and breaching of entity heads threshold. Corruption was established that 200,000 cedis of the 5 million cedis was spent on a contract for COVID-19 PPEs. Joseph is with us via Zoom. Now, all of this happened on the sidelines of, the main sitting, but has any of this work found space in Parliament's proceedings? Have any other members besides Edward Bauer taken interest in it? Joseph, your mic is muted.
Okay, yeah. Now you can hear me, I guess. So on the floor of the House itself, no, this is not a conversation that has started under any of the discussions that the House is dealing with. The expectation is that the House will be going on break tomorrow, God willing, although there are indications that may be extended. I've been seeking to engage other members of the Poverty Reduction Committee in particular on this very issue, because that's a committee that's supposed to be responsible for various initiatives that deal with various projects that are aimed at eliminating corruption. This is not a very active committee. I doubt, Daniel, yourself, that you are aware that such a committee exists here in Parliament.
I must confess, I was not.
It's actually not done much in terms of helping deal with the issues. And from the indication that's coming from Edward Bauer, who is the MP for Bongo and a member of the committee, this is an issue that, beyond him raising it within the media space, that the CEO of the Zongo Development Authority be dealt with according to law, he would seek to get the necessary processes for the committee to pay attention to that particular corruption issue.
Okay, so he says that he will make the committee pay attention to it. But Joseph, from your knowledge in Parliament, what can a committee do when a case like this comes up?
So usually the best case scenario in terms of the House dealing with this would have to come at the level of the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, so that when the year comes to an end and the Auditor General audits the accounts of the Zongo Development Fund, then a report on that will eventually come to Parliament, along with a report on all the other expenditures as far as the government is concerned. And then when the committee begins to look into this sector by sector, they will delve into that. They would go ahead and invite the various managers of the fund to come respond to the various questions. And so that's probably the only way. And then at the level of the committee, the Public Accounts Committee, a recommendation will come to Parliament, and then demands can then be made when it comes to refund or recommendations on actions that actually have to be taken. But what we've seen over the years is that any such processes will take quite a while in order for it to eventually come to an end. So, for example, when it comes to the Auditor General's report, as far as 2020 is concerned, we may not see it in Parliament until maybe late 2021 or 2022, beyond which a lot of time would have passed. At the level of the Poverty Reduction Committee itself, the best that they can do will be probably to ask the minister in charge of the sector to come provide the necessary clarification, and that may probably just happen mainly at the level of the committee, or them moving to the fund to go ask questions. And there is very little that the committee can do beyond what the Public Accounts Committee itself can do in maybe a few months or in a few years' time.
That clarifies a lot. Thank you very much, Joseph. But stay with us, because Parliament has approved an $86 million loan facility from the Israeli Discount Bank for the purchase of armored vehicles for the Ghana Armed Forces, amidst concerns from the minority that the House was not furnished with enough details. $80 million of the amount will go to Elbit Systems Land Limited of Israel for the supply of the armored vehicles, whilst the rest will go to firms arranging the facility and other associated costs. Earlier, the minority requested that the approval is done in camera because they had concerns they did not want to raise in public for security reasons. Right, let me go back to Gakpo for some more details of this. Quite an interesting request there from the minority, Joseph.
Yes, and so what happened was, when eventually this morning, the chairman of Parliament Finance Committee, Dr. Marcus Beabwa, moved a motion that the House approves this particular facility. It's totaling an $86 million facility from the Israeli Discount Bank. It's actually in two versions. There is a separate loan facility of $74 million, and then there is a different one to the tune of $12 million. When the chairman of Parliament Finance Committee, Dr. Makasberia, moved the motion that the House actually approves that particular facility. The Minority Chief Whip, Muntaka Mubarak, indicated that there had been a conversation on this at the level of leadership. And even after the Committee on Defense and Interior, as well as the Committee on Finance, looked at the entire facility, they had a number of concerns. But he said that they, the minority, did not want to raise the issue on the floor because it's a sensitive security issue. And so they had earlier engaged the defense minister and other officials, and the agreement was that the House would move into a closed sitting to consider this particular loan facility and also the commercial agreement.
So the closed sitting will happen?
No. So eventually the House approved this in the open because the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, had a response to that in the absence of Muntaka Mubarak and in discussions with his bosses, Harun Idrisu, the minority leader himself, and his deputy, James Saveji, an agreement had been reached that they will go ahead and approve this in public, but MPs will be measured in the kind of commentary that they would run on the issue.
Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, thank you very much for joining us from Parliament with the latest from there. You're live on The Pulse with me, Daniel Dazi. When we come back, 6 independent presidential candidates lock horns later today. Evans Mensah and Franklin Kujo of Imani Africa will be here to tell us the details. Welcome back. Now, 6 independent presidential candidates will later today lock horns. They will speak on policy and the challenges facing Ghanaian voters in the Imani Africa JoyNews Independent Candidates Debate. We're joined via Zoom by the president of Imani Africa, our partners for the debate, Franklin Kujo. Evans Mensah, head of political desk, is with us in studio. Good afternoon, Evans. Let me begin with you, Franklin. What's your expectation for today?
Hi.
Hello, Franklin.
Yes, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. What's your expectation for today?
Well, I mean, these are candidates that are very well exposed, and we expect that they'll be offering us a different version of the reality we've been used to. We probably would want to hear from them what their business plans would look like. Not that we are expecting them to adopt their manifestos, but essentially get a sense of what they think in terms of the resource envelope that this country has and what that can be used to prosecute in terms of agenda, programs, projects, and plans, basically. So it should be an interesting conversation to have. I see that the candidates are all fired up. They are almost all ready. In fact, the 5 candidates will be on stage, with the exception of one who will be reached through Zoom. And they are very fired up as I speak.
Now, we understand, why is it important, Franklin, for us to give a voice to independent candidates when some can argue that over the last few electoral cycles, a third force has failed in causing a dent in Ghana's elections?
Well, we can only keep making efforts and hoping that one day we'll reach nirvana. Fact of the matter really is that with the multiplicity of voices that we have right now, it only tells you one thing, that people are getting fed up with the duopoly and that they want a different type of leadership or different types of thinking. I mean, clearly speaking, this may not necessarily make a major dent in this election, but you never know. It is most likely that their responses would then suggest to the major parties that, look, there are others who are listening and watching that we have not been able to serve fidelity to in terms of reaching out broadly to the masses. And it's important that they take, I'm sure they will take a few clues from this type of conversations. And I think Ghanaians generally are energized to at least listen to others as well. I'm sure people are getting fed up. You did say not long ago, I think on Joy FM, when you were interviewed, I think 2 days ago, that you think you might be swayed. Because when you listen to Ebo Morgan, you were quite, you were in a state of stupor, and you thought that you could be swayed. So there you are. There you are. It's most likely that these conversations are going to be the ones that will probably be the path to having some very interesting conversations going forward. We certainly think the questions we have, we put together, the multimedia and us have put together, are quite interesting. And I think the major parties watching should be taking a cue.
Franklin Gujo, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Speaking of questions, the man who will be quizzing these candidates is Evans Mensah, head of political desk. Evans, how prepared are we?
I mean, just to add to what Franklin said, the MPP and the NDC, every election year, they rehash the previous manifesto, right? So the government was in the position, and then they put forth a manifesto. They won the elections. Obviously, the question is, how much of the manifesto have they fulfilled? They're going to bring another manifesto. That will be a rehash of the previous one, and a few new things will be in there. The NDC, same. They've also been there before. They're going to come back with a rehash of the manifesto. They'll put a few things in there. That's my argument. Aren't we tired of the recycling of the manifestos over time? Only two parties recycling every year. Don't you want to hear something else? That's a simple argument I put forward when people ask me, why are you even entertaining these views? Right. You want to hear that the other side to see what else is available so you can make a pretty informed choices here.
Before we go into how prepared we are, Evans, take a look at this.
That is very big on ensuring that the systems do work. In other words, the institutions and all that do work. But one which also is bound on accountability and some level of creativity. We've been playing around the same sort of governance system for so long. Whether it's delivering the quality we want, I think we're all sure now that it isn't. And so ours is to build a government that ensures that every Ghanaian gets involved, every Ghanaian benefits from the state, in terms of leadership, but also that we build a country that we can be sure that will take us into the future.
So one of the biggest issues, and we have been discussing this throughout the week with all the candidates who come, is we look at the issues that are facing us today and explore the alternatives that we have. We have seen that the sanitation minister has said we are 85% through in making Accra the cleanest city in Africa. Where do you stand on this? What do you think should be the solution?
I don't think she's got it right. I don't know what the basis is. I mean, we all live in Accra. We've seen what is still happening in Accra. We've got landfill sites that are choked, and so they're spilling over everywhere else. And so 85%, I don't know where she's gotten that number from, but that is way far from what the reality is. I mean,
are you sure you can beat MPP and this and so forget about it? There's always a try. You have to make an attempt. We cannot relax and say, fold our hands and we throw our hands in despair and say, let them go. No, we should challenge them. Because there are so many things that we have that they don't have. They've come to their wits' end. They have no new ideas at all. No, at all. They only recycling the same old stories.
With the greatest of respect, Mr. Morgan, even your wife and kids did not believe you.
No, it's normal. It's a psychological issue.
So why should the rest of Ghana believe?
The rest of Ghana must believe me that because I have a lot to which, look, I want to run for a reason. First of all, I want to run because Ghana needs a change. That is number one.
Daniel, yes, I want to be president because I sincerely, deep down in my heart, believe that I have the revolutionary capacity and endowment to move Ghana away from economic slavery.
And it gives me an incredible edge in knowing systems also, how things ought to be in place. I know for a fact, if you were to count all the maybe hundreds of problems that you would say Ghana has, you will drive all these problems to one fact, that if our approach to it was a science-based, data-driven, human-centered consciousness and leadership, we will solve all these problems. And the reason that I know, because it's been done in Singapore, it's been done in Japan, it's been done in Malaysia. All these first world countries have proved that fact. But our 275 leaders in parliament, NDC and MPP, likes to have a circus and not get to the problems. And that's why we're sitting here 28 years into the Fourth Republic. We're being looked at and laughed at by the whole world.
Right.
Sitting on a pot of cash, all these resources, and don't have the mental capacity to make the right decisions to move this country forward.
That's exciting, Evans.
Very exciting views there, and I'm looking forward to hearing more. But let's talk about the rules for the night.
Okay. What's the rules?
And the rules for the night are pretty simple. And let me start with the basic one. So the candidates are expected to take on the questions. They should be polite but address the issues. That's all we want. But the timing, they will have 1 minute to make an open statement, an additional 1 minute at the end to make closing statement. When we ask, or myself and MFAPA will ask a substantive question, they have 60 seconds to provide an answer.
60 seconds
to provide an answer to a substantive question, and then 30 seconds if you have a rebuttal. Now, we're so not used to that in Ghana, right? We modeled this on the UN Presidential Commission's debate format. That is where we want to get to, where politicians make succinct statements on policy issues and not over-elaborate and go into, tangential things that are unimportant.
What someone has done or what
bullseye. Bullseye. You have 50 seconds to convince me to vote for you. What would you tell me on economy? You need, if you know your stuff, you should be able to articulate in bullets and get another 30 seconds on the end to expand.
So those are the rules for tonight.
Absolutely, and there's going to be a bell. That is going to be we have a timekeeper with the bell. If your 1 minute is over, you ring you out. And of course, myself and MFA will make sure once you rang out, you rang out. If you started by saying thank you, ladies and gentlemen, good evening to the people, and 1 minute is up, and you haven't articulated your point, it's up.
Is it too late for me to apply to be the timekeeper's assistant, the bellboy?
It's not too late.
Evans Mensah will be moderating this evening's debate, and you want to join us. The rules alone tell us how prepared we are and how excited we are to bring this to you. 8 p.m. is the time. It's going to be live on Joy FM and Joy News.
Just a quick point. This is the first of 2 debates. We hope it to be a third one. The second one is the minority political party. So you see the official name is Minority Political Parties Independent Candidates Debate. This is the independent candidate. We are starting with them for obvious reasons. The other party, they haven't selected their candidates yet, etc., etc. That we expect that to be done by September. So end of September, we'll have the minority political parties debate separately. And then we are still in conversation with the NDC and the MPP to see if they will agree eventually to have Nana Donga Akufo-Addo and John Mahama to come in. If they don't, the option is to have what we call evenings of talks. So they can bring their top policy guy, is the finance minister, and then the NDC will be the top policy guy, and have a talk where audiences can come and ask questions of them on some of the key issues. So this is going to be something that we're going to be rolling out in 3 phases, hopefully.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's your election headquarters, of course, always has you covered when it comes to being informed so that you can make a good decision on who to lead this nation in December. You're still live on The Pulse with me, Daniel Daza. Let's move quickly to the opposition NDC, which is demanding an independent audit of the just-ended voter registration exercise. The party alleges the EC systems are defective, resulting in multiple registrations which will be used as basis to delete their supporters from the electoral roll. The EC in the just-ended exercise registered some 16.9 million Ghanaians, but has since served notice of cleaning the roll to rid it of multiple registrations, foreigners and minors. NDC Director of Elections Elvis Efriye Ankra wants an audit before any such deletion of voters.
In any case, have you heard of the facial recognition again? When they speak these days, do they talk about facial recognition? It used to be facial recognition, facial recognition, facial recognition. What happened to facial recognition? Technically, any credible biometric system is able to detect duplicate registration in real time and address them. That's why when you go, you use somebody's passport and you get to the airport and they check, it will be found out. Or you're going for a visa and you go and you've been there before, they check, they'll find out. That's how a biometric system works. So it beats our imagination that this exercise that is being conducted in the midst of a deadly pandemic, that people will move from one registration center to another to engage in multiple registration. What reason? Why would they do that? Why would somebody register here and go and register there? Why? If there are any records of multiple registration, the EC may have to examine the causes internally, because we are reliably informed that the EC's own biometric system is defective and therefore deduplicating registrants by itself. You recall that when they were doing the pilot exhibition, a new system, so-called, people will go and register, and the system will say they're already in the system. Do you remember? And we said it, we brought it here, we showed you evidence. People went to register on supposedly a new system, and then the system will show that they're already in the system. So if they should look internally at their systems and their processes. And that is why we are calling for an independent audit of the entire register in relation to multiple registration. Details of all those who have engaged in multiple registration, including their photographs, ID numbers, centers where they engage in multiple registration, etc., should be made available to the political parties, to this independent entity for verification. We are highly suspicious of this move because we are aware that the management of the EC has transferred almost all the experienced ICT experts at the headquarters to various regions for very strange reasons. And then they are currently moving the non-IT staff and replacing them with questionable political proclivities. And you can go and check whether all the majority of the IT staff at the headquarters have not been moved to the regions. And check whether moves are not being made. In fact, the process is ongoing now as I speak, to move almost all the experienced people at the headquarters away from the headquarters. In effect, Jim Mensah and Akufo-Addo have compromised the electoral process. We hope that the so-called deduplication exercise will not be an excuse to delete the names of persons who belong to certain ethnic groups. We are watching with eagle eyes. We believe that this comprehensive audit will also help address our observation during the pilot registration exercise, where there were cases of false matches, what I was talking about earlier, owing to system failure, in order to ensure that genuine persons are not disenfranchised, and every Ghanaian should be interested.
Now, political scientists have described as disappointing the Electoral Commission's admission it has thousands of minors and foreigners on the newly compiled register, a situation they want creates more acrimony among parties and other stakeholders prior to the polls in December. Senior political scientist with the University of Ghana, Dr. Ali Duseidu, encouraged the EC to build consensus as quickly as possible through IPAC to reduce the mistrust that has been created between the Commission and the parties.
The selling points for the EC's justification for the conduct of a new voters register was the fact that the old register had a lot of foreigners. Actually, they called it the ECOWAS register and not a Ghanaian register. It had a lot of minors who were not legally qualified to vote, having their names in the register. So, but also there was a point that they made about the fact that they needed to add a third security feature, other than just using the term, the biodata. They needed to add was it the eyelashes or whatever it was, to strengthen the security system of the registration process, and for that matter, the complete voter register that we're going to have. About 38 down the line of registration and violence and deaths and beatings and destruction of properties, we were told that we still have foreigners in the voters register. And I was wondering, then what happened? The assurances, the deployment of troops in almost all the border areas to prevent people who are not Ghanaians coming in to register. what happened to all these things? The kind of divisiveness that was created by this restricted movement of people across one area to another, then we are technically back to square one. The EC said they have mechanisms of addressing these challenges. They will be able to get these people out. And I was thinking, why didn't they do it earlier by subjecting Ghanaians to this kind of 38 days of technical hardships? Now, there may be two reasons which they didn't want to admit, that we can never have a voters register that is 100% clean. It is very difficult to have something like that. One, either because the tools or the mechanism that is being used to register people cannot detect whether somebody is underage or somebody is not a Ghanaian. It takes the responsibility of party agents and other people, community members, to identify somebody who is not a Ghanaian or somebody who is not legally of age to register. Now, this particular process has in itself been subjected to abuse because people know that this person is an indigent, is a Ghanaian, but simply because of the fact that he or she cannot speak a specific language or because they assume that he is going to vote for a specific political party, they end up challenging that person. So if care is not taken, and we are only going to use the fact that somebody's nationality or age requirement has been challenged by another person, means that the person is not supposed to be in the voters register. If you're going to go by that criteria, we are going to end up disenfranchising people who are qualified to register and vote and have been challenged. Now, two, what is the problem? Is it systematic or institutional problem, or it is a matter of agency?
This claim that this has been successful has not been based on any superior metric or any superior reasoning. You don't decide after the fact that what you have done is successful or otherwise. You should know what you intended to do, right from get go. I should also say that the idea that it's difficult, it's challenging for us to read minors off of the register. I don't think it's that complicated at all, because whatever the Electoral Commission is going to do now is what should have been done before. And it's one of the views that we have held and advocated for throughout this entire period, that for anybody to turn 18 years old and get registered on a register, if we even devoted rather than 10% of the resources that went to the Electoral Commission for this exercise and double or triple the capacity of the birth and death registry, and they are building superior biometric systems and systems that are up to date, they should be in the position to tell us who's turning 18 years old in the country or not, and that becomes a primary data.
And you're live on The Pulse here with me, Daniel Daze. There's a lot more coming up here in the bulletin, but before we go ahead with anything else, I have something exciting to tell you. Something new and fresh, something keen. It's coming on Joy FM, and the man behind it all is here with us to tell us what is going to happen. Sammy Forson.
My brother.
How you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Today I'm in your office.
I'm borrowing the office myself for a while, so it's good to chill with you for a while.
Same here, bro.
So someone described it as this: before you drive your car, you have to put the key in the ignition.
Yeah.
And Joy FM has decided to give us an exciting new way to do that.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Well, as part of celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, a lot of people came up with kind of things they missed on Joy and all that, and Adam Knighte, the PD, thought that, okay, why don't we give people something they have missed on Joy, which is lunchtime rhythms. So then we came up with the idea of ignition. In there, we just take you through your lunch, take away the stress that came with the morning, and also play you those amazing love songs, and then we ignite you and then hand over to the driver, who is Lexus Bill, and he takes off with Drive Time on Joy at 3 o'clock. So basically, between 1 and 3 p.m., I'll be on your radio playing you all your favorite love songs, from Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, to Ed Sheeran, to the new ones as well, and also giving you some updates, talking about what's trending on social media, And, you know, if there are new innovations here and there, I'll let you in, but not to disturb you too much as well.
Not to disturb you too much. Just some good, great lunchtime rhythms.
Yes.
And it's called Ignition.
Ignition, yeah.
So when is the show started?
It takes off on Monday, the 17th, from 1 to 3 p.m. It's Monday to Friday. And on Wednesdays, you know, business is really important. And with COVID-19 taking off, I mean, a lot of businesses in 2020, there's a need for entrepreneurs to always be updated. So we'll have masterclass in between 1:30 and 2:15 on Wednesdays.
Okay.
Yeah, with
so
the Albana form.
Yeah, so we'll begin Ignition.
Yeah.
Then we'll park a little for masterclass to take off.
And I'll play some love songs for business people.
I can't wait to hear how you can love people in a business way.
There are ways, you know, there are ways and styles.
Sammy Forson is a great guy, trust me. So I can't wait to see it begin. Tell listeners out there what they should expect.
They should expect, I mean, if you are a regular Joy FM listener and you know the magic that Lunchtime Rhythms brought your way, we're bringing you that and a notch higher as well. So expect soothing, relaxing music. Expect some great information as well. And over time, there'll be a few segments here and there we'll introduce that would spice up your afternoons as well, whilst we ignite you into drive time.
Nice one, Sammy Forson. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my brother,
for joining us. There's a lot more coming up on the Pulse. Like I said, anger and confusion from some foreign retailers as the government task force on retail trade begins shutting down shops without licenses at Soja Bar area in Circle, Accra. Close to 50 shops have been locked up so far since a team made up of police and military officers moved into the trade zone. There have been tensions brewing between Guta and some foreign operators across the country, with stores of some Nigerians being forcefully closed in Abosiokai some 3 weeks ago. The retail traders, although initially cooperative, are meeting the task force with both oral and physical resistance. Watch this.
It started as a peaceful exercise to lock down foreign retail shops that did not have appropriate licensing. Most of the foreign retail traders, mostly Nigerians here, said they did not understand why their shops were being locked instead of being inspected. This brought about some chaos and confusion.
What are ways where you people are coming to verify and know who does not pay or who doesn't pay? So when you come, I bring my document. They say they're not here to check their document.
We want to comply according to what the asked us to do. This is the document. See the names of our members of our group. Now they are coming again.
See the paper, everything is here with me. What do you want me to do? I'm not a thief. I'm doing document. I'm doing document business. Huh? What you tell us nonsense is this? This insult is over. If you want to kill me, kill me. I will not go anywhere. Nobody will lock my shop. Even our father will come and lock it by himself.
You can't assess me. I brought money to pay your president authority. I have to lock my shop. Why can't we get less than you? And you keep me here today. I'm not today. You keep me here today. You keep me here today. I'm not coming to the shop. I'm not coming to the shop. Okay. How do you want me to pay the loan I took from people? You know, since I closed my shop for 8 good months, I have family paying for rent, taking loan. The loan people are chasing me. Are you pushing me to get thief? Are you dragging me to become a robber in Ghana here? Why now? You are making me to be an armed robber. Anybody who is pushing me to be an robber, in generation continue to thief. The thief to the word end. If God is not there to see, if Ghana is not in Nigeria, do business. Not my cause, remain on me. But if they are there, do business. And they are dragging me like this, Almighty God will judge.
Redugo Cannes by name. Our shop were locked by Ghana Union of Traders, GOTA, since 1st December 2019. We are staffed for complete 8 months. On 2nd December, the interministerial task force came and opened the shop. They will accept you and give you a huge amount of money to pay to the Ghana Revenue Authority. Some were giving even $2,000, $3,000, $1,500. The least is $1,000. And within that interval of 1 month, we have made an effort to make some part payment on that, based on that assessment. Working to complete. So many of us have lost their capital because at the course of the 8 months, we are not doing anything. You are eating from the little you have. Even so many people have turned even to beggar. We are begging in the street. We lost 3 lives at the cost of that 8 months because we are not having the funds to take care of those lives. The 2 children were very sick. The other woman was also very sick. But there's no money to take them to a good hospital to take care of them. They all died. Look at what is happening now. This woman was brutalized. It was even a security officer pulling her up.
This very
woman, look at her. She's about to faint. We are also calling the security agency to come and pick her to the hospital.
Yeah, but do you think it's just for, I'm not defending the police, but do you think it's because they were met with resistance? Do you think any brutality came because they were met with resistance?
You wouldn't expect, if you are in our shoe, you even do more than whatever anybody is doing here. Because you have been staffed for 8 months. Even the sum of the money we paid to the Ghana Revenue Authority, we even borrowed it to pay.
So you go, let's get it clearly. So
based on the assessment they did on July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, we have started paying at the Ghana Revenue Authority.
So that's your license claim that you paid?
We have, all of us have a receipt, even a file. This particular shop, I will call him for the file. You will see the file. So he has started paying. Everybody has, so many, about 50%, 70% have regularized their document. And the information we had is that they are coming to inspect our document to know if we are complying with the regulations.
So let me just get clearly, when did you return here? When did you return after the 8 months?
July.
2nd July, so just last month?
Last month, just last month.
And that's when you started paying?
That is when we started paying after the assessment.
About how much were you paying?
We paid some who were giving at least 30% of every assessment they were giving to.
About how many CDs are we talking about?
When someone is giving $1,000 or $2,000, you check the 30% of $2,000 or $1,000.
So you today heard they were coming, but you knew they are going to come to inspect.
The information we had is that they are coming to inspect our document to know if we are complying with what they ask us to do. They ask us to put signs on all our shops so that they can be able to recognize each shops and their owners. We have all done that. We have made some payments. The next thing, you just barge into our shop, ask everybody to lock. There is a difference between inspection and coming to lock our shops.
Did they give you the rationale for why they are locking your shop?
They didn't tell us anything. Immediately they came, they asked, close your shop, lock your shop, starting pasting whatever they are pasting there. So if Ghana government are asking us to go back to our country, they should open our border. Open the border, we'll call on Nigerian government to come and evacuate us. There are millions of Ghanaians doing petty business in Nigeria. Even without passport, I'm telling you. I have 3 tenants in my uncle's house. They are Ghanaians. I said they don't have passport. So nobody is disturbing them. So if they want us to go, well, the definition of whatever they are trying to do, they are doing here is that leave our country. That is the simple interpretation. We have a country. We won't deny we don't have a country. They say we should leave our country. Give us time. We'll call on our government to come and evacuate us.
An angry Prince Boateng, PRO of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, threatened even more police presence, while also explaining the grounds for the lockup.
if you're a foreigner and you are trading in this country, you must have the necessary residence and work permit to be in this country. There must be proof that you have paid your taxes. If you are a foreigner and you are trading in our market, you should show proof that you have invested at least $1 million in your capital. So if you don't have that, then it means that you are not part of this country. Now there is a ridiculous argument that people are part of ECOWAS. Now if you are part of ECOWAS does not mean that you can go into anybody's country and do whatever you like. In ECOWAS, we have what we call the rules of origin. Even with the rules of origin, it requires that the produce that you are selling in an ECOWAS country should have originated from a member country of ECOWAS. My brother, I'm here with you. The products that you are seeing here, do they emanate from any ECOWAS country?
Okay, I can't.
So what is this issue about your members of ECOWAS?
So as it stands right now, what is the way forward? Some of them.
The way forward is that the shops will be locked whenever. If it is because we thought that they were going to be cooperative, as they were cooperative with us at Abosokan yesterday, for which reason we thought that we shouldn't come with a number of police or national security people. We thought that people were going to be disciplined and law-abiding. Now that we have seen that they are ready to combat us, I assure them that we'll come here with full complement of security.
But you did say that they have a place designated for them to do their business.
There is
not them, and they said there's no designated place.
Am I the one to designate a place for them?
Is there a place for them to do business?
I am not supposed to designate a place for them. The place
ministry has a place designated for them.
I do not have to create a place for them. What I need to do is to ensure that they do not trade in our markets, that they do not engage in retail trading. It is not my business to create a place for any foreigner to go and trade.
I'm referring to the trade ministry.
It is not the ministry. It is not the responsibility of the government of Ghana to find a place for foreigners to trade. You can trade anywhere, but you must not engage in retail trade. Such as outside our market. This is a marketplace, and they cannot trade here.
So, but they did tell us that they paid some amount to have their licenses, and that they have the right to be here.
Some of you were with us at Abosokan from Monday to yesterday, and when we were there, you will agree that we did not lock any shop. What we want there to do is to just give them a notice and to give them a time to do the right thing. Nigerians, Cote d'Ivoirians, Ivorians, Malians, they are our brothers. We are not sacking anybody from this country. There are Ghanaians in Nigeria, there are Ghanaians in Mali, there are Ghanaians in Togo. Nobody is sacking anybody from Ghana. All we are saying is that if they are law-abiding people, they should just comply with the laws of Ghana. If you have done it, the notice that we gave them was that if you have the needed regulatory requirements, come to our office, come and show us that you have proof, and we wouldn't have locked any shop.
One accusation they've leveled against you is that one woman has been pepper sprayed. Are you going to take responsibility if that is true?
My brother, I refuse to comment on that. You are here with me. You are the cameraman. Did you see anybody being pepper sprayed here?
That's the allegation they are...
that is the allegation they are making. You are here with me. You have the cameras. Did you see anybody being pepper sprayed here?
It's not true.
I am not the one to tell you it's not true. You are the one to tell me because you have the cameras. Have you captured anybody being pepper sprayed?
Any of such thing?
Did you capture anybody being pepper sprayed?
Sir, did you witness any of such thing?
You have the cameras. Did you capture anything like that? That is the allegation. I am not here alone. I am here with you. Did you capture anybody being pepper sprayed?
He's lying. Everybody knows he's lying.
Now, the police SWAT team has arrested 5 persons believed to be land guards. The SWAT team, JoyNews understands, was notified about this illegal operation being carried out on the lands by residents. In May this year, the SWAT team arrested 16 land guards at the same area for terrorizing and attacking landowners. Nancy Josie was with the team today, and here's how it went down.
Situated on this land, that's the Pantine land here in Accra. You remember there's been a series of demonstrations by residents here and also officials and workers of the Pantine Hospital over what they say are threats on their lives. Over the years, there have been land guards sighted on this particular stretch. In May 31st, some 16 and 17 people suspected to be land guards were arrested by this police SWAT team, and today there's been another operation, and so we are headed to where exactly these people are on standby, and hopefully some arrests will be made. So you see some men currently on the run, running for their lives after the police suspect that they are land guards. We have seen 2 men running. This is an operation with more than 4 policemen I have counted so far. 3 have been able to grab the 2, whilst 2 are walking towards them. Land guards, and yes, you see one in blue, another man in white shirt. These are built men. All right, so you can see these men are being dragged into these vehicles. All right, so I've seen that 3 of these men, you can see them in your shots, are being arrested. These are suspected to be land guards. And yes, as usual, they will deny that they are land guards and that they are doing their work legally. But the fact that they decided to run even after being seen by the police officers speaks louder than words. Azak. Okay. So you can hear the men agitated and angry at the police for picking them up, suspected to be land guards. Right. So you hear one of the men saying that they are not joining the police because they have been brought there to do legal work, and so there's been some confusion. The men are resisting arrest. One of the men have been dragged into the car, the bucket of the pickup, after several complaints that he's doing his work legally. The man in white was the one who was found to be running and caught by the SWAT team. Meanwhile, 2 of the laborers here who are in gloves are resisting arrest, and the police is asking that they join or get into the car before they use force on them.
That shows that they were working. Yes. Now where's our time? Now where's our time? I want you to
I don't know anything. Enter the car. Get on board. Go back before we pick you up. Sit down.
I can stand like this. I want them to capture me well. Movement.
No, don't sit here. My boy, I'm talking to you. What is it? When you fall down, what is it? Inside the car. Hey, my friend, me no
So when the people are involved, why you took like them? We that are innocent. Why? I'm just coming to buy food. Why?
Hey, what is it?
I'm just coming to buy food. Why? Then you catch me. I don't know anything about the year. Why you to catch the workers? Catch the workers. We that are working outside, we don't know here.
When the way in charge said, don't worry.
I don't know anything. We don't want them to beg any. Watch the workers. We don't know anything. You imagine anything. You are working. Finish. Master. Listen, Commander, I don't know anything about it.
Worker, you don't have to.
But when we get there,
but some of our I don't know.
Don't worry. They are impressed.
I have no business. No, I don't want to go there for
sit down.
Don't let our work.
Master, make my head do my head. Let's go.
You saw
police, you were running on this line. Why did you run? Why did you run?
To work.
Hello, sir.
So as you can see, these men numbering about, now I see about 5 of them who have been picked up, are going to be taken away by the police SWAT team, and hopefully we'll be following them and get some details from the police about what exactly we should know about these men and why they are linked to this particular land. So there we go. So that's the vast land you see in your shots. We do not know the owner of it, but all we do know is that there are land guards that are situated, and you know land guards are illegal businesses in Ghana. And so the police have moved in and have arrested I see about 5 people in the bucket of the police SWAT team. And hopefully we'll be getting some information from the police and also the operation.
And that's all we have for you on The Pulse today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Daniel Daze.